Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of My Coding School. In this episode, it's going to be a little bit different than the others. We're not going to go actually code anything specifically, but I'm going to go over an application that I built as my own side project. And that's because it has a lot of the features that I'll go over in other videos and how to build yourself. But this is kind of like the end product of what I built. So essentially what it is, it's a finance tracking app, very similar to Mint. I love finance, I love coding, so this is kind of like merging both passions. And I got to use a lot of different APIs, modules, coding methods that I wanted to learn more about, like signing in with Apple, like doing purchases through Apple, connecting to Plaid APIs so that when you hook up your either checking account or credit card account, you could import your transactions from the last month, 6 months, 1 year. And so the application tries to give you like an overall view into your finances, what you're spending on, when you're spending too much, which is really the main reason I built it out, and also code, my passion at the same time. And so we're going to go through step by step of the features, and please disregard any error messages that come up. You can see without even getting started, I got a bunch of yellow warnings. I'm sure an error message will pop up because I'm running locally. This is not the most up-to-date version that's on the iTunes store or Apple store, but this application is live. It is downloadable. And I'll eventually go through a lesson of how to get it up and running into the iOS App Store, because that's a whole process into itself. It's not even code based, it's just going through Apple, dealing with their approval process, and finally getting something published in their App Store that you can show your friends and family. And so first up, Trckfi, sign in, sign up. I already have a video of Firebase login method, and that's what this first one is, email and password. This is the easiest way to get started with a login method. This is using Firebase as a login method, and really that's all I'm using Firebase for right now. I started, like a lot of my projects, I started with Firebase or Firestore as the database, because it was quick to get up and running. But given the nature of this application, it didn't really make sense, and it was pretty slow. So for example, when you hook up to the Plaid API, it could get up to 1,000 different transactions that you made over your credit card. So let's say you imported all the data from your credit cards over the last year. That can be a lot. So there's a lot going on. So if you were to do a API call for every single one of those transactions, 1,000 transactions right away, there's a couple instances where either it took forever, it crashed the app locally, and not only that, like if you were to actually move on with this app and try to grow its user base, it would really it would add up really quickly. So let's say you have 1,000 users, they're all importing 1,000 transactions at the same time. You got 100,000 transactions. That's way over the free tier for Firebase. It's gonna get expensive real quick. I don't care if you charge people for this application, you're gonna end up spending that much money on hosting costs and database costs, more so than actually making any money. If anything, you'll break even at that point. So just something to keep in mind. In my other video, I went over like Firebase is a great place to get started, but if you're going to scale at all, or if you have a team, more than one, you have another backend engineer, definitely recommend creating your own server, your own database, and hosting it that way. All that being said, I did switch it from Firebase Firestore to Realm, which is a MongoDB, and that was actually for security and for quickness. So Realm actually runs on the local database of the device itself, and so this is financial data, so I want it to be a lot more secure. The problem with Mint and all these big applications, you give them your financial data, it's theirs, then they could do it with it whatever you want. Mint is free, but they just charge you with the data that you have as a user, and they give you a ton of ads. And so I wanted to create my own version that I could use myself. So all of the transaction data is stored on the device itself, so it gives you the ability to create a CSV, email it to yourself, or just delete all your data altogether. If you're tired of using the app, and you just click delete forever. The data was never on any Trckfi servers. I don't have any servers to store the data, and so it's the user's data, and they have full control over it. And I think I have the wording that goes around that as well. So let's get started. So we have email, password, sign in with Apple. A big positive of using Expo already, I have another video on this of Expo versus React Native, is this QR code. If I scroll up past all the warning messages, we have this QR code. What this does is allows us to download the Expo Go app, scan this, and whatever code we have locally on our computer, we can see it on our phone. Now, why is that a big deal for right now? That's because if I try to sign in with Apple right here, it's going to, it's a device that doesn't really exist. So it doesn't have all the same features as a iPhone in your hand. And so I haven't been able to get it up and running. I'm sure you could, but like every single time you create a new emulator, you restart your computer, it deletes all the data. So you're not going to be signed in. It's not as quick as easy as it would on your device. And you can see we have a little error here for authorization error. So that one makes sense. This is only an error you're going to get on this local device. And so with that, we're actually going to sign up. And we're going to, instead of signing up with Apple, we're going to just do email address. So let's just do tim@mycodingschool.com and a password. And quick recap, if we were to log in right now with, or create an account with email and password, it would create an account with Firebase and store it in the users table within Firebase. So we could see that if we go to authentication, we can see that, let's delete this actually real quick. We have these users and we have these sign-in methods. So right now we have email, password, Google, and Apple. I didn't implement Google just yet, but we have Apple enabled. So when we do email and password, it just goes directly to the users table and it has this user ID. With Apple, it's a little bit different. There's a lot of configuration on their side that has to happen. And you have to configure it within Apple. Once you get the token saying like, okay, Apple successfully authenticated you in their system, you get a response back into the application. With that response token, you could then create a user within Firebase. So that allows you to do, if you were to create, so you can see these three are Apple and this one's email. If you were to create a user with an email address, with this email address, but then also try to log in with Apple ID, it would link these two accounts. So there's a little bit more work involved to integrate with the Apple login, but that'll be a whole other video unto itself. So for these purposes, we're just going to sign up. We're going to agree to terms. I have these terms of service saying that I don't have the data. It's your data. You can do with it whatever you want. So then we're going to sign up. We'll come back to this passcode for Trckfi, but once we sign up, we're going to go through this onboarding flow. So this onboarding flow is for new users. When you log in with Firebase, you could tell if the user is logging for the first time or if they're a returning user. You don't want to show this whole onboarding flow every single time someone comes in to use your app, because they already know how to use it. You won't also only want to show this when they're using it for the first time, to like get them up to speed. Okay, what the heck does this application do and how do they use it? So a little blurb about welcome. So let's get started. So it'll prompt you a couple of like, do you have Amazon? Yep, of course. Netflix, of course. Hulu, I don't. Spotify, of course. And so this will start to build your transactions in your UI, so that it gives you a good starting base of transactions and shows you how to use the system. Let's make up a few numbers here. 1,500, very cheap. Actually, is that cheap? Utilities, 50. Car, nope, skip. Groceries, I don't know, 400. Phone, 100. No kids yet, no pets. Paycheck, let's just say 3,000. And click next, and success. So this is the main page of the application. Right now, the only transactions we have are Netflix, or everything we just filled in. So you can see Netflix, Spotify, Amazon, utilities. You can see right here, bug already. I get a warning message, and this paycheck shows negative 3,000. That's lovely, not positive. But you get the point. We have this list of transactions, And we have some features in here that only work for imported transactions. Right now I don't have anything, so if we were to put, let's say right now, coffee, let's do restaurants. So we're going to do restaurants and then do Chipotle. I love Chipotle. So it gives us some categories. We had this on February 15th and it was $15. And you can either do an expense or income. We can select the date. We can see if this is recurring or not recurring. This is only a one-time purchase. We have the categories of food and drink, restaurants. And we have these categories because it allows us to use our graphs, which we also implement to show like, okay, how much are you spending not just at Chipotle, but at food and drink and at restaurants specifically. So this is going to create a transaction. There's also the ability to, I already have it put in, but you could also search locations around you. This is hooked up with Google Places API. So right now it'll track my coordinates from the device. It'll guess. Right now I'm at Capital One Cafe. So it'll show those, and then I could also put Chipotle, and I could fill in the whole name. And once we have that, we're going to create the transaction. Of course, missing value for transaction, and of course first bug. So like I said, I'm running locally, so ignore that one. But if I were to create that transaction, it would show up right here. And with that, it would show our graphs as well. Right now, we don't have any transactions that we imported in the beginning, but this only shows like one-off transactions. It won't do recurring. I won't go into why I separated those out, but this will show like the history of how much you spend per month. Right now I have nothing, so it's not going to show anything. And then we also have all these other things. So we'll go back to the onboarding flow. We can reset our password. We can download our data. So this actually uses the Firebase functions to get all the data on this local device, send it to create a CSV locally, and then it'll send it to a Firebase function just to email it to yourself. So it's not storing the data on Firebase. It's just using the function to get this JSON blob to send this CSV to the user. You could also erase all of your data, so this will erase everything locally, including your user data. You could always re-import it again with Plaid, but if, let's say that Chipotle transaction actually did work, it would delete that, and you would have to put that in again. Privacy policy, terms of service, and then connect to Plaid. This is a big one. So this is really the main reason I created the application. I want to connect with Plaid to be able to see what type of data you get back from Plaid, which is a kind of like a third-party service that connects to banks, bank software or bank APIs. Some of them are good, most of them are crap. So Plaid is a service that you pay for that exposes, it kind of it normalizes the data from all these banks so that you could just go in and connect directly. So we could see if we click this, this is going to connect to Plaid. Trckfi uses Plaid to connect, and the user can hook up their bank account. So whether it's Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citi, it has a lot of options. So what this does is allows you to hook up to one API that gets access to potentially a bunch of different banks, and then the user themselves will go in and fill in their own information. So Trckfi doesn't have any access to any username, password. Plaid does have access to get your financial data. Obviously, it has to come from somewhere, but the end result is Trckfi just getting the transactions itself and organizes that data. I'm not going to go through the whole process right now, but you have access to a lot of banks here. There's a lot that aren't shown here, so it's a lot more than right here, but it normalizes data so you don't have to hook up to Chase individually, Wells Fargo individually, Bank of America individually, and some of them it's just like honestly pain in the butt. I've already tried. So Plaid makes it a lot simpler, especially as a single developer, to get up and running. And so we're just going to exit out of that, and that allows you to import all of the transactions from the last month, 2 months, 6 months, year, whatever it may be, and it'll show into our dashboard and our transaction data. And so that's most of this application. This video series will go through how to integrate some of these services into your own application. I'm sure not everyone wants to create a finance tracking app, but Google Places API might be useful to you. Realm versus Firebase, why we would use one over the other. Apple login, Google login, hooking up to Plaid, and as an API. Also, I forgot to mention, this is also using Apple subscription services. So right now there's a subscription already on this account, but if it didn't, it wouldn't show this screen right here, and it would show you how to set up an Apple subscription within the system. That's either recurring or a one-time application. So there's a lot of setup within Apple ourselves. So we'll go into like how to set up yourself. That was like the one instance where I thought I might have to eject from Expo into native React Native. But I was able to figure it out and use a library called Expo in-app purchase. And so, and then also Expo local authentication, which is the Face ID. So that's what showed up. That kind of exited out right away. So I'm going to go over all of these, how to integrate it into yourself, into your own application for my coding school. So hope you join. See ya.